Hey there everybody, it's Eternal Snowman here, and I'm going to be doing a different type of video today, which is going to be talking about the fan game Pokemon Reborn. I had a really great experience with this after just completing the game and been playing it for the past few weeks, 2 weeks or whatever, and I thought that it was a really great game, and I wanted to share that with you all and just show you what, like, or talk about what I think is really good about this game and let you guys have have some exposure to this game. That's probably the best fan game that I've ever played, and probably like close to the best way to make a fan game, in my opinion. So I'll talk about a little bit of why it's some things that could potentially turn you off from the game. I'll talk about why I think this game is great and why my experience was so good and what makes this game good as opposed to other fan games and even as opposed to other main series games. So, Pokemon Reborn, much like I'll give a little bit of a summary and some backstory on this game. So, this game is a very well done fan game of Pokemon Emerald, and it's very expansive, large world, and has a lot of different things to it. So, like many fan games, it has all 21 of the starters available to you, and it has everything updated to Gen 7. So, that includes mechanics, that includes all the Pokemon that are available, moves learned, how all the moves work, and that kind of stuff. So everything is available to you in the game, and you were able to catch everything pretty much, like mostly everything, as long as you do events and that kind of stuff. So you have a lot of stuff available to you. Along with this, this game is pretty long, so all the way to the end game. So right now it's released up to episode 18, and at the end of episode 18, you finish like your Pokemon should be around level 90. So actually the entire and it's not the end of the game, so there's a little bit more to be played. So I assume by the time the game actually fully finishes releasing, then it will have like you will have level 100 Pokemon by the time you beat the champion or whatever. So um, I'll talk a little. Okay, and then also yeah, okay. So current release playtime 55 hours. There's every single gym. So there's 18 gyms, one of every type. There's a new field effects system, which essentially what it means is that there's a bunch of different effects, like so how grassy terrain and electric terrain and that kind of stuff are in the game. There's a bunch of different terrains. So there's like the no terrain, but there's also like steel or like I don't know what they're all called, but like there's a terrain that boosts steel type moves, for example, and it does a bunch of different things. So they're kind of similar to how the game field terrains interact, but also interestingly, these new field effects can be um, manipulated with different moves and stuff. So an example of this would be like there's a misty one, and then you can blow away the mist by using like gust. So there can be strategy revolved around that. They also have different shiny Pokemon. That's like kind of a small feature. I There's an online feature, but I haven't actually tried using it. I don't know if it's actually good. But okay, I'll talk a little bit about why I think a couple things that could potentially turn you off the game. So, like I mentioned before, it's not finished yet, but it's pretty close to finishing. As in, from what I've heard, the next episodes and the next release will actually be the end of the game. So it's pretty close to being finished released. I know that that could turn people off because if you don't get like if you sit down and you start playing the game and you can't finish it, that is a little bit of a turnoff to some people. But I will say it is almost done, and it does feel like a very complete experience after completing up to the current version of it. Other things that are really good uh, about it are still there, so you can still enjoy the experience a lot. Now, moving on, another thing that is bad about the game potentially that could turn you off is the dark storytelling that they use. So this is just like a warning to people because this type of like the storytelling they use uh, is a lot darker, but also very rich. Like they do very good character building and very good like the characters that are in the story are actually like they are built up from like the beginning, and you can see like different parts of the story tying together. and it making sense, and how the entire thing, like, it feels more organic and real than like other stories of this type. And it can be compared to like pretty good stories of things like, the Fire Emblem franchise maybe, or maybe like the Final Fantasy franchise or something along those lines, where the story is good and it's pretty original and one of the best stories of a fan game. It's pretty in depth, um, but it is a little bit dark. It talks about things like suicide. It talks about things like terrorism and that kind of stuff. So if that turns you off, like a darker tone of storytelling to the point like it's kind of edgy slash like dark, that is a potential turnoff. The other thing that some people may not like about this game is, and definitely something that I felt when playing the game, was that a lot of the difficult content in this game are split into double battles. And I would say like the split between is around 50-50, as in there's about 50% of content that is completely singles, and then 50% of content that's doubles. Outs like in more difficult content, so not like your grindy, like the trainers are not included, and obviously wild Pokemon and stuff are not included, but like just like your typical like your gym battles, like your uh, evil team bosses and that kind of stuff. There's like a split between how difficult it is, or like the difficult content between doubles and singles. And part of that comes from, there's the partner battles in which you get a NPC to work with you with for parts of the game, and that's like a thing, and that's like relatively prevalent. But also there's a lot of like the gym battles and stuff that are just you versus like in a double battle versus someone else. So that is something that can potentially turn you off. I definitely felt that during the game, as in my team was not super optimized for doubles, and I had a lot of issues in dealing with some of the areas, because obviously my team was not even like a good team, but like by single standards it was not even a good team, but like by double standards it was even worse because I had not very much double synergy and that kind of stuff. So it's just something to keep in mind, but also I think it introduces a good element. So then moving on to talking about what is good about this game, I think one of the best parts about this game is that it feels very challenging. Obviously the story was also pretty good and was very engaging, much more so than a normal fan game normally is. But the like the most well like the best part about this game was its difficult gameplay. And what I mean here is like, because most Pokemon games, both fan games and just in general, uh, have these like really easy ways to like essentially break the game. You can just exploit a lot of different things, and it's pretty easy to beat these games without much of a challenge. Like you can use whatever, just exploit the systems and do that pretty easily. This game, it's very difficult to do that. There's a couple of reasons for this. The first is they have a very harsh leveling cap. So in the early areas, if you just try to plow through with your starter or whatever, you're gonna out level before the first gym, which can still happen in other games. But the thing that is most important about this game is that the level cap is very strict. So when you beat the gym, you like it's an objective to beat the gym, because otherwise your Pokemon will out level the level cap, and then they'll start not obeying you. So an example of this is after you beat the first gym, the next gym cap is only level 25. And so by the time you get to the next gym, all your Pokemon are like around 25 or like 24 or 25. And so you want to get that gym badge to be able to not like get over leveled and then pass the level cap, because that would be really bad. Now that said, there is a system in place called common candies that you can use to like de-level your Pokemon, just so that you can still use those Pokemon. But essentially the point is that you need to be able to manage levels and stuff. And I really felt that, at least in the early portion of the game. Once I entered like the mid game, middle of the game to like around like the 6th, 7th, 8th gym or something like that, 6th or 7th gym, I didn't feel that as much. And I was just focused on getting levels down because I didn't really feel that very much. Another part of the difficulty of this game, okay, this it is that this game has very good, well thought out boss fights, and that comes in like there's two reasons to that. The first is that um, these boss fights are generally held inside their own terrain, so they have to have get an inherent advantage by the time you enter. And so like when this happens, like so an example of this would be like the water gym leader gets is fought, and you have to like you cannot use like earthquake in their gym or ground type moves in their gym because it'll fail, and the power of water moves is going to be increased, and this kind of stuff. So like you have to either be able to deal with the terrain in some way, try to take advantage of it yourself, or you try to change the terrain. So like you can like try to change the terrain in a bunch of different ways. Like an example of this would be like a lot of people like to use Ampharos in this game because it learns electric terrain by level up. And so because of that, you can use electric terrain to deal with these more difficult gyms and give you a temporary time of when like a time frame of how long you have to be able to like really abuse those few turns with where they don't have the terrain. Another reason why it's so good is or like so difficult is because they have well leveled Pokemon, so their levels aren't like extreme. So one thing that some other people have done in their fan games is to make it more difficult. They just artificially make their Pokemon higher leveled. Pokemon Reborn doesn't really do that, as they just have well leveled Pokemon, so they're around the level that you should be to challenge them, and then they give them good move sets, items, and be able to take advantage of everything and have synergies and stuff. So an example of this would be like the Fire Gym, where they used like a bunch. They used a bunch of like a barrage of different AOE attacks on a in a fire like terrain and double battles. So it's really hard to deal with because they could just bombard your team with a bunch of fast like mons that did a bunch of damage really quickly, and it was spread. So it would deal with both of your Pokemon at once. So what because of that, the game felt really challenging but also not impossible. So another thing that this game does really well is it rewards a lot of well like playing well. So like there's two parts of that. One is like prior planning rewards greatly. So if you manage to nurture a mon like that is not very good, but will put a lot of work in later down the road, then you're gonna get rewarded for that. But also that like if you know that you're going to have a weakness to a certain type or whatever because every single gym is present and there is no variable in that sense, then you already know that, so you can plan for it. So you want to build a good team with good synergies and be able to have like cover everything that you need to. So an example of this would be like if you knew that you had a weakness to like say flying types, then you would want to pick up like a golem or something along those lines. Um, but also it rewards you for playing really well inside the game because of how difficult it is. You actually need to play close to optimally and be able to find creative strategies or find ways to be able to beat it. I mean, obviously, you can just take the longer approach, just grind. I've seen people just like not try to find solutions with what they have and just try to grind and find like quick solutions or whatever. But yeah, that like in my opinion, like the best way to play this game is just trying to use your main team and trying to build a roster, like a 6 or 5 or 6 mon roster to be able to do this. And I can say for sure that this game is not hard enough to the point where it's not like it's impossible to do these things. I personally beat the game with 5 mons, and they were all not very optimal. So they were like Exploud, Golem, Sawsbuck, Empoleon, and hmm, and Butterfree. So if you actually notice about those 5 Pokemon, I used 4 of the Pokemon on those lists, other than Butterfree, are Pokemon that I just really like in general. I had chosen Empoleon because I just wanted to mix it up. I also heard that starting with a water starter was really hard because the first 2 gyms were grass and electric. So I wanted more of a challenge, and so I went with Empoleon. Um, and then, like, other than Butterfree, all the other Pokemon I just really like. And then Butterfree, I got a shiny Caterpie pretty early on. So I decided, okay, why not just try to use a Butterfree? And so because of that, I was just like, it was fun in part for me because of how challenging it was. And you notice that out of those 5 Pokemon, that none of them are good competitively. Like extremely good competitively. I mean, like I would have options to take stuff like Blaziken, which has speed boost in this game, or has the option to get speed boost in this game. I had the option to get like a lot more Pokemon that were better competitively, but I chose to get 5 Pokemon, 3 of which are PU in Sawsbuck, Golem, and Butterfree, and I think Sawsbuck and Butterfree actually don't even see use in PU. And then Exploud is NUBL, which means it's like basically in NU. Or sorry, basically in RU, and then Empoleon is in UU. So I didn't really have good competitive Pokemon, and all 5 of those Pokemon are unviable in doubles OU. So I didn't really have a good competitive team, but I relied a lot on synergies, pre-planning, having good moves, like taught to the Pokemon and stuff. I like you don't really get a lot of TMs and stuff, so you have to be able to plan well. And just like a couple of things that are nice slice of or quality of life things, like an example of this would be like HMs aren't permanent in this game. So if you just have a Pokemon that learns it in your party, you can just continually teach it that move. So an example of this would be like I didn't need my Empoleon to know Surf, Dive, and Waterfall in this game. I just needed it to know Surf as my main move, and then I would teach it Dive or Waterfall when I needed it to use it outside of battle, and then teach it Surf again once I got into battle. Or like along those lines is pretty much like an example of a quality of life change that they made to be able to just make the game a little bit better. Now, as for the rest, I don't know. There isn't that much else to talk about. Okay. Actually, there is one more thing. The last part is about side questing. So what I feel is really good about this game is that it has a really good balance between the main game and the side questing aspect of it. So one thing that there's 2 ways to approach side questing. You can either make side questing the entire game, and so that the game is based around exploring the world and whatever. I don't think that format works very well in Pokemon because of how Pokemon really works. I think that could actually, now that I think about it, there could be a way to do it, but it would have to be very intricate. But games like this, like Skyrim and Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild, and even just like a lot of Legend of Zelda games are like this, where the side quest portion of it is very expansive and rich, and the main you can beat the game really quickly or whatever, but you still but you can still do other things after you beat the game. A lot of Mario games are also like this. The other way to do it is that you have side questing be very rewarding. So you have a central main story, and you have like a decent amount of side questing that takes up a lot of time, but it's very rewarding. So this is what Pokemon Reborn does, and something I really like about Pokemon Reborn, like the side questing area, is because the Pokemon that are normally available to you are very mediocre. It's not really like you don't really have the option to get like really rare Pokemon unless you actually go out of your way to obtain them. So, like an example of this would be like pretty late in the game, you get the option to do this pretty long side quest to get a Gibble. Now, in a lot of fan games, how this works is like people would just uh, essentially hand out these free Pokemon or be able to give you these free Pokemon or like fan favorite mons pretty early on in the game. But in this game, they give you like very mediocre mons. So like one of the things that I was actually struggling with was to find a second team member after my starter. After your starter, you don't really get an option to get a very good Pokemon early on. So you get like Goldines and like whatever that isn't just isn't very good. And so I had trouble picking a second member. So in the end, I actually had to settle on something. So I chose Caterpie as my second member because I caught a shiny Caterpie. And it's something like I really like when they do these things that make you choose mons. Okay, and part of the reason why I had to pick a second mon was because my starter was starting to get to the close to the level cap, so I needed to share some XP with some other mons. But my point is that like I really like when they are able to essentially give or force the player to use mons that they normally wouldn't, and um, that's a really good aspect of the game. But also, it gives you the option to work hard for these mons that you want to have. So like you can explore these long side quests that are not necessary to complete the game, but are still there because they give you really good rewards. And so you can do these long side quests if you choose to. Now, I'm just gonna wrap this video up because it's getting a little bit long with like my recommendation for this game. So I would recommend you to choose to play this game if you have some extra time, as one of the best Pokemon fan games I've ever played. In fact, in terms of in-game playing like experience, the only game that I've actually played in Pokemon that gave me a better overall experience than this is probably Black and White and BW2. So that like Gen 5 in general. While the other games are really, really good, I felt like this game has an amazing gameplay experience. And partially because I'm also more of a mature Pokemon fan now. If I played this like 10 years ago or whatever, it would have been a lot harder for me to like because I like more of a challenge nowadays. So tell me what you guys think of this type of video. If you want to see more of this, I can do reviews on different types of games, not just Pokemon, but give you guys recommendations on different games to play. But if you, I don't know, and if you want to see anything to do with Pokemon Reborn, I may be able to do a little bit of content regarding it if you guys enjoy Pokemon Reborn. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time for more content videos.